Hello there, and you are very welcome to episode 10 of the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast with myself, Jamie Moore, and Mr. Darren Cleary. Coming up, we're going to be chatting to Bray's Aaron Greene, and we're going to ask him about their first win of the season against Shamrock Rovers on Monday, if the players disrespected the previous manager, Dave Mackey, and what life will be like under their new manager, Martin Russell. We're going to hear as well from former Chelsea man, Mr. Connor Clifford. He returned to action last weekend for Limerick after a 6-month ban for betting. He's going to tell us how he got caught making 800 bets over 3 years. Cork City's Barry McNamee and Sligo manager Ger Little after their game on Tuesday night. While our First Division focus will chat to Cobh Manager Stephen Henderson, Cabinteely's Kieran Marty Waters and Shelbourne coach David O'Connor, who's going to run 10 marathons in 10 days to highlight mental health issues. That's all on the way. Darren, hello, how are you?
Hello, Jamie.
What's the story? How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well.
Now, a war of words on Twitter between Shamrock Rovers midfielder Greg Bulger and the Soccer Republic pundit Declan Fabio O'Brien. Tell us more, because someone's a clown.
Apparently it is Declan Fabio O'Brien who's a clown. He's been accused of not really doing his homework by Greg Bulger. It was all pretty innocuous enough. I think Bulger decided to have a go in a calm enough way to say, you shouldn't slaughter lads if you don't know the full story. But then when he ended it by saying, you weren't that great yourself, you were no superstar, and the clown emoji, I think that probably turned it from a good-natured right of reply to a war of words. So in the escalation of Twitter feuds, we went from kind of throwing Twitter shade to full-blown feud. I think Bulger's well within his rights to respond to that kind of criticism. I did feel it was very, very harsh. I think once you get into the realms of assessing a manager's suitability for the job and saying that he's about to lose it, it gets into a little bit of a dicey area where the players have every right to come out fighting. Whether or not it will cause more harm than good in the long run, that probably remains to be seen.
Yes, so the first tweet from Greg Bulger read, "Hey Fabio, mate, no problem with getting or taking criticism, and rightly so, but would you keep it constructive? Hammering boys, you'd swear you were a superstar when you played or something, you clown."
See, the first part of the sentence is absolutely fine. It's like, look, there's no need for it. There's no need to absolutely hammer lads. Give it a rest. And then he gets more angry as the tweeting goes on. If he had the 140 characters and not this extended character count, it mightn't be as an exciting a story.
Yes, now the reply from Fabio went, "I thought it was constructive, pal. A player of your calibre, I'm surprised you had a problem with what I said." And Wexford man Bulger then responded, "Disgrace and hand back me wages." Yeah, that's constructive, all right. Now, I do agree on that point. You can't be on TV or anywhere telling a football player or any person who has a job to hand back their wages if they underperform, because it's not going to happen. If Declan O'Brien was playing for Drogheda up front and missed 3 open goals, he's not going to hand back his wages, surely. Clearly not.
It's the ultimate insult, because not only are you saying that they had a bad game, but you're questioning their integrity and their professionalism. I think a line is crossed. I think guys get on TV and it is their job to say something that will get them back on TV regularly, as we've seen from one of the more senior pundits in RTE who doesn't do League of Ireland soccer. We all know who we're trying to refer to here. But it did seem overly personal. To suggest someone hand back their wages because they're a disgrace is a little bit too far, in my opinion. And while Bulger's comments might have caused something that didn't need to happen and might have put him in headlines when he doesn't need to be. I mean, he's on the front page of the goals pullout this week. And had he have not obviously tweeted, he wouldn't be. It's a bad week for Rovers in general, but this kind of just underlines the fact it's been a bad week. I really think that it might have been best to keep a dignified silence in this instance. At the same time, I completely respect his right to question someone who's accused him of being basically dereliction of duty. You didn't do enough. You're not good enough. How dare you take a wage, hand it back? I think that is very much an over-the-top criticism for Bulger's performance.
Yeah, and speaking after the game as well on Monday, when they lost to Bray 1-0, a match I was out at it in the Carlisle grounds. The worst wind and rain I've seen in the League of Ireland in a long time, Darren, but the Shamrock Rovers head coach Stephen Bradley was asked if he was concerned about his position. They've now lost 3 matches in a row and 6 of their 12 so far this season.
4 and 5 league games as well. It's not good.
Yeah, he said no, not at all. On whether he would get time to try to improve on his side fortunes, he replied, "Time will tell on that. I know I'm at a big club and you have to win games. I get that. I've understood that from the start. I believe in the project and what we are doing, but we don't use that as a fallback or an excuse. It doesn't get me any leeway to say it's okay to lose 3 games because it's not good enough." He's talking, of course, about Shamrock Rovers building their new training facility in Roadstone and their academy teams doing well.
Stop talking about that stuff.
Well, he was asked about it, so he had to answer the question.
If you've lost 4 out of 5 games, don't tell us that you've got a lovely training pitch for 10-year-olds. It doesn't have any relevance to your first team. And as well as that, Stewie Byrne made a very good point on Off the Ball during the week, where he said that Bradley's constant assurances that everything behind the scenes are great and we have a 5-year plan and this is a really exciting project. That must be really difficult for players to hear, because then they get into their mind, either consciously or subconsciously, well, there's not much expected of us this season. The manager is saying we're not going to compete. The manager is saying that for the first 2 or 3 years of this project, we're not expected to do anything. So they look like a bunch of players that didn't respond to a setback. What they did in Bray, well, look, let's not say hand back your wages. It wasn't good enough. You expect a response to a Dublin derby, regardless of how crushing the defeat is. I know you can't really slaughter guys who lose to a 9th minute stoppage time goal. It just seems unfair, because there's an awful lot of bad luck in that, as well as a substandard performance. But at the same time, you can't keep referring to this 5-year plan you have. All it does is try to distract, and it's making excuses. Take responsibility for a bad run and explain it. I mean, Alan Cawley raised a very, very good point where he questioned whether or not the goalkeepers at the club were preventing Shamrock Rovers from being successful. And instead of addressing that in a constructive manner, Stephen Bradley says, I don't respect his opinion, so I don't care what he says about my goalkeepers. A perfectly valid opinion, which is different on the scale of hand back your wages to, actually, I think the goalkeeper situation or the lack of a steady keeper might hold them back. You can't be getting in these war of words, and you can't be side-tracking with this kind of talk.
No, it does have to be said as well, on Monday and the previous match as well, the Shamrock Rovers goalkeeper Kevin Horgan was probably their best player in both matches, so he has been under a little bit of criticism.
Not a good sign, though.
He did make some mistakes, but he has been
the
good.
Best player.
No, but he has. The point I'm making is he has been good and he has performed well after his mistake in the match as well. The more recent defeat against Dundalk, he was left in the team and he's bounced back and done well. We love our tweets of the week here on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast, and there have been 2 fantastic League of Ireland related tweets this week. The first one came from Bray Wanderers on Monday night. Bray beat Shamrock Rovers 1-0. It was their first win of the season. We're going to speak to their player Aaron Greene on this week's podcast. But before Shamrock Rovers lost to Bows, Stephen Bradley had said that it was Bohemians Cup final. After the match, he said the same thing, that it was Bohemians Cup final.
Why does he keep saying it's their cup final?
It's the third time he said it, but
since he's got the job, every time he plays Bows, he accuses Bows of being minnows, and Rovers are looking for bigger and better things, but for Bows, playing Rovers is their biggest game of the season, and it bites him in the arse every single time. Yes. It's getting embarrassing. Just don't say that sentence.
So Bray beat Shamrock Rovers 1-0 on Monday night. Their first win in the League of Ireland this season. And the tweet read, our cup final, #football loves us. And that is because the Shamrock Rovers campaign to get young lads in Dublin playing football on the streets, which is a very good campaign. The hashtag was football loves us. But our cup final, football loves us. And I know a number of the Shamrock Rovers fans were very upset with that. They were also upset with Keith Ward on Friday after the derby. The equalising goal by Dan O'Byrne. Keith Ward runs over, kicks the corner flag, and he tweets late on Friday night after the derby win, sorry at Shamrock Rovers about the corner flag, take it out of our cup final bonus.
But you see, I know we don't believe that things get pinned to the back of dressing room walls anymore, and that players can give, or managers can give, big motivations. Professional footballers are expected to be able to motivate themselves beyond someone putting out a salty tweet or saying a stupid thing. But that line is really, it's haunted Bradley. It's followed him around. And instead of burying it and saying, oh, well, what I meant was, he continues to trot it out and has used it more than once to describe the Dublin derby. And it just got to a point where it's constantly coming back to haunt him. Yeah, you're on episode 10 of the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast. It's Jamie Moore here alongside Darren Cleary. And we're going to move nicely on now to Limerick. And they're going to face Shamrock Rovers this coming Friday at Tallaght Stadium at 8 o'clock. And we're going to speak now to their new midfielder, whose name is Connor Clifford. He was banned from football for 6 months last October for betting offences. But he was back in the pitch for Limerick. He's played in their last 2 matches. The FAI confirmed in October that the 26-year-old had been suspended from the 3rd of October until the 2nd of April. The offences were committed in the UK and subsequently investigated by the FA, who charged Clifford with 112 breaches of the FA's E8 rule, which relates to betting. He admitted the charge, was also fined £600 by the governing body, and was only able to return to the pitch this week. And he's been telling us on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast how he got caught. Why were you betting, and what was the story there? Because I know you were aware that it was against the rules, and unfortunately you got caught.
Yeah, basically 2.5 years ago I had a Sky Bet account, and I was done 800 bets with no wins, and the biggest stake I done was €15. And I just thought, who am I? I was playing conference at the time, and I was doing like a fiver accumulator, just random teams, Champions League or whatever. I knew I wasn't meant to be doing it, but everyone seemed to be doing it, and I just thought a fiver here and there is not going to harm anyone. But what I didn't know was the FA had done like a contract with every betting company saying that if they suspect any footballer to have a betting account, that they have to report it. And obviously someone in the Sky Bet betting account recognised my name or whatever and reported my account. And yeah, they contacted me and I just put my hands up. I just said, yeah, it was harmless. I just see the rule was changed. Once you weren't betting on your own team or betting in your league, you could have a bet, and it got changed. But I was a bit of a I wasn't sure. I kind of knew what I was doing, but I just thought it was such small bets, and how are they going to know who I am? And yeah, I got caught and I put my hands up, and then that was it. I got 6 months and kind of fun.
And then when the kind of phone call came, or how were you informed that you had been caught, and how were you kind of feeling then? Because you were probably aware that even though you were putting on smaller bets on bigger football matches, that you were caught and you were in trouble.
I was basically I was called in the office by Stephen Kenny when I was at Dundalk, and just said that there was an email that come through, a letter come through saying from the FA. I was thinking surely it can't be that, because it's such small bets. It was 2.5 years ago. I didn't even have that account anymore. So then I got in contact with them, and they just basically said that they're investigating me. So I had to do like a phone-in interview with them. I had a solicitor there with us as well, so he was dealing with it, organising that for me. Basically they just said, listen, Connor, I know it's harsh and stuff, but you broke the rules and we have to be seen to abide by the rules. So I got the minimum, which was 6 months, and if I appealed it and lost, I would have got another 6 months. So I just had to take it on the chin and move on. It was tough though.
Yeah, and you said in that time you'd made 800 bets or so, Conor, and it is something quite common in footballers, is that they do, make small bets. I know it's against the rules, but a lot of footballers do it. I'm sure you've stopped now. Is it something when you were in the UK that you felt you had a problem with, or was it just a small hobby of a few quid away from training and stuff?
No, not at all. I literally had a Sky Bet account that I got it started off with a £20 free bet for signing up. I was on a coach on the way to a game. It was 800 bets over 2.5 years, so that's nothing really, and with no wins. So no, I don't even bet. I'm not betting. I haven't a clue. It was just randomly just for entertainment on an away journey or something like that, So it was definitely, I didn't have a problem.
Yeah, that's the Limerick midfielder Connor Clifford, who's now back on the pitch playing for Limerick in their last couple of matches as well. And it's great to see him back, Darren. He is a fantastic young footballer, hugely talented. Of course, he captained Chelsea's FA Youth Cup winning team a number of years ago, should I say. He's had loads of clubs in the UK since. Came home to Dundalk. He's got done for betting. He's explained there it was a mistake. He was never betting on his own team or his own league. He's 26. He's got a long way to go in his football career, and we hope that he can get things going again, because he really is a top-class footballer if he can get on the pitch and get playing well again.
Yeah, it's a very interesting tale, and probably a good note of caution, particularly for professional footballers. Unless you've lived that life, it's hard to understand the monotony of what you do in between training. I think a lot of it, and he touched on it as well in a number of interviews, it was down to boredom, and he didn't really understand the ramifications of what he was doing. He felt that because he was removed from the events that he was betting on, he wasn't in breach of the rules. I think it's very, very important to inform players and educate them as to what can land them in trouble, but at the same time give them life skills and hobbies, so that when they're sitting at home after finishing training, if you're a professional footballer in England, you finish training by 11 in the morning, back at home by 12?
I would say more so 12, and if you're in the gym, you're certainly home by 2 o'clock.
You're home by 2 o'clock, and then you have the rest of the day to do something. I think a lot of it was down to boredom and not really having a whole lot else to do. And you find a lot of that with players. Joey Barton said similar when he was banned for betting offences. I think it's very, very important that players are educated on it, and as well given life skills and hobbies, so that they can avoid the trap of looking at their phone and having a punt.
Yeah, now we're going to move from Limerick here. We're just a couple of points ahead of Bray Wanderers. Bottom side, Bray picked up their first win of the season in that 1-0 victory over Shamrock Rovers on Monday night. Aaron Greene played in that match. He went off injured and is going to have a scan on his knee this week after picking up a knock. Bray had drawn 1 and lost 9 of those 10 matches, conceding 27 goals. They scored just 4 in that time. Martin Russell is now at the club in an advisory capacity, but he's expected to be named manager on the 1st of May. He has been in the dugout for those games against Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers. Now, on Monday's Soccer Republic, Paul Corrie said that the Bray players had shown a lack of respect to previous manager Dave Mackey, who resigned after losing to St Pat's 5-0 2 weeks ago. And I asked Aaron Greene if he agreed with that statement, that the players didn't respect their former manager.
No, I don't. You don't. So I don't like hearing stuff like people saying we didn't have respect. I never once had an altercation with Dave personally. Not that I didn't have respect. There was some games that just didn't work out. The plan, we had game plans for certain games, and it didn't work. Last year, a lot of our game plans paid off, you know what I mean? And our defence, and I'm not talking about defence and meaning our back four, our defence, I'm the first line of defence, and Gary and Rowan or Corey, whoever it may be playing, we weren't ruthless in attack and we weren't ruthless in defence, and I mean that as a team. And that inevitably cost us, really, you know what I mean? And we need to be like that, and we were like that the other night, as I said, and we were like that against Dundalk, so no, I don't think we lack respect for Devils. We never had a manager that I lack respect for. You take whatever that manager wants to do and try and implement it your best you can as part of his game plan, Jamie. So no, I definitely don't see that we disrespected him.
That's Bray's Aaron Greene speaking to us here on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast. Darren, he has said that the players did not show or lack respect to the previous manager Dave Mackey, although he did hint that maybe they didn't agree overly much with some of the tactics used. But it's mad when a new person comes in. Martin is not the official manager yet. He will be soon. They should have got something against Dundalk. They've beaten Shamrock Rovers and they're now within a win or two from the teams ahead of them, Limerick and Sligo. And it's amazing when a new manager comes in how quickly things can change, because Bray do have a very good squad.
Yeah, there's certainly a bit of a bounce there, and I think from the start of the season, Jamie, when they got a decent result in the opening game, we thought, fair play to Mackey, he's arranged the squad in absolute bedlam. It didn't work out for him at all, for whatever reasons. I think I would always be a little bit suspect of when a team immediately gets that bounce and it's almost too good to believe. I'd wonder exactly what, if anything, was stopping them from playing for the last manager, for performing for the last manager. They might blame it on his tactics, but at the same time, there is a decent squad, or the makings of a decent squad out there. You felt that they shouldn't have had to wait, 11 games for a win.
Yes, indeed, and they're only now 5 points behind Limerick and just 6 points behind Sligo as well, with only 11 games gone this season, so still 3/4 of the season to go. And we'll hope to speak to Martin Russell as well after his appointment on the 1st of May. You're on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast. It's Jamie and Darren here. We're going to move now to Shelbourne in the First Division. Some big news off the pitch this week in that they've appointed Dave Henderson as their head of recruitment, and they're about to appoint David O'Connor, 26-year-old former Shamrock Rovers UCD and Limerick defender, as their new chief executive. Some big news, Darren. Tell us first about the appointment of Dave Henderson, who Shells. We're delighted to announce the appointment of Dave Henderson as their new head of recruitment. He's come from Bohemians. He knows the schoolboys set up and underage football in Dublin like the back of his hand. And if Shells want to do well on the pitch, they need to get the best young players. They've not been doing that in recent seasons, and the appointment of Hendo can certainly help them do that. Yeah,
he's one of the most respected and successful talent scouts in the country over the past, I would say, 15 years, maybe even longer. He was involved with Pat Fenlon way back when at Shell, so it's actually a bit of a homecoming for Hendo. I was actually writing up an article for Off the Ball yesterday with the news that Dave O'Connor was coming in, and the takeover was about to be agreed. They've made some changes to the board as well, and they really are moving in positive directions, looking at that strategic partnership with DCU as well, Jamie. And I was trying to chronicle some of the good things happening at the club and maybe give fans a hope for optimism. So for a long, long time, Shels fans have had nothing but pessimism, and with due right. I mean, they are in the most depressing football league in the world in the First Division. Things have been bleak, they've been grim. There have been issues between the management of the club and fans. They haven't had any kind of constructive relationship. The club haven't engaged with fans in a manner that I would think, certainly looking on outside, has been satisfactory. But there are a lot of things happening at the moment, and when I was trying to highlight the positives for a piece on the website, which you can see now, offtheball.com, I had a couple of things that had happened that were looking good, and then the Hendo news came in. So there's a lot of snowballing effects here that are really positive from the outset for Shells. They've got renewed investment coming in. The deal we understand here is going to be done in the next day or two. They're about to name a new CEO, 26 years old, probably the youngest CEO in League of Ireland history. They've added to the board too, and they've got the DCU partnership. And now Hendo coming in just caps off what is a very, very positive couple of weeks at Talca Park.
Yes, Andrew Doyle is the investor who's involved in the club. And just a little bit of background on David O'Connor, if you don't know too much about him. He started his career
friend
in
of
Dublin.
The show.
Yes, friend of the show. He'll be on with us quite soon. He started his career with Belvedere in Dublin. He moved to UCD, did a scholarship there in geography, and also has done a degree online via the PFAI in sports management, which is how he's got this job with Shelbourne. And yeah, he started this week. He's really excited about the role. Speaking to him off air, he's going to chat to us in a couple of weeks once he's got his feet under the table, Darren. But it's exciting times for Shelbourne. Their team in the first division as well on their own here. He's picked up some wins with the first division this season, and first going up and second, third and fourth involved in playoffs. There is a feeling around Shells that they can push for promotion this year as well. And with the money that Andrew Doyle looks likely to invest, Dave Henderson coming in, Dave O'Connor coming in, some more appointments we will think as well, and a better playing squad. Finally for Shelbourne, who've been in the doldrums now for so long, it is a positive move for them, and we wish them the very best of luck with that. But they do need to keep winning football matches on the pitch too, to try and stay in that hunt, to try and get up from the first division with the likes of Galway and Longford and UCD and you know, others as well. Drogheda, of course, it's a competitive first division, but they'll certainly have their hopes up of trying to be involved in those playoffs for sure.
They had a good couple of weeks, kind of halted last week by the loss. But I think in general there have been an awful lot more positive aspects on the pitch this season as well. They've been able to grind out games. I've watched them have a couple of 1-0 wins where in different years their game Shells would have lost 2-0, 2-1. They are playing with discipline. They look well organised. Here he has got them fitter, I think it's fair to say, than they have been in recent years. And they look like a team who can mount a bit of a challenge. It'll be interesting to see how they respond from the bit of a setback, because they had been on a really decent run. But I think the bounce of everything that's happening off the pitch and the bit of a buzz and excitement around the club, that has to feed into the players. That has to give them something to play for. This is a kind of club that if this season isn't the year it goes up, next season is going to be very, very promising. The investment is important, but for me, the introduction of infrastructure is more important, and bringing in a new CEO with fresh ideas, new members to the board. What you've got there is innovation for a club that has stagnated for a very, very long time. You have to give credit to the current custodians, Joe Casey and the people involved there. They kept the club alive in the most difficult circumstances. After the indulgences of Ollie Byrne looked like they could have ruined the club, there could be no Shelbourne. But now they are in some ways passing the torch onto a group of people who are very, very ambitious, and I think that's something to be applauded. We are very, very positive, the reaction to St. Pat's and their ambitions. And I think Shelbourne deserve the same credit, because what they are doing and what they are trying to do off the pitch, for me, is certainly very positive, and I would be optimistic. And I would urge Shells fans who generally have a bit of a perversion for pessimism to buy into this and at least give them a chance. They're coming in from outside and they are there to do a good job and try and bring the football club forward. The best you can do, the only thing you can do at this point, is give them your backing, give them your support.
Yes, now one man who is also planning to give Shelbourne backing and support is a man who is a Shelbourne legend, it's fair to say. His name is Stewie Byrne, and he joined us on our League of Ireland slot on Off the Ball on Tuesday night in studio with Kevin Kilban and Nathan Murphy, and he says he would like to lend a hand himself in helping Shells get back to where he feels they deserve to be.
Stewie, your thoughts then on Shells, a club very close to your heart. You've had some incredible nights with them. It's been in pretty dire state for several years now.
It's been a long time.
Stuck in Division 1, which is no man's land for any club. From what you've heard within the club, what are your expectations?
I've kind of known about a few things for a while now. I think what Dan said is correct. I think the debt was a huge monkey off the club's back, and that's something that's only now been cleared in the last 6 months or so, and that's kind of given them a new lease of life, and they're now in a position to, try to look forward and try to, first of all, get the team back into the Premier Division, which is really, really important. I can't stress that enough. They have to get out of that division, because the difference between the First Division and the Premier Division is absolutely huge. What I would say is that there is no shortage of people, either past or present, that have been associated with the club that would love to get involved and would love to see Shelbourne get back to where they were before.
I think get involved?
That's I would get involved, yeah, and I've that's something I would have said before to other people, and I know of other people, people who are well thought of in the game, who would be the same. And I'm delighted to see what's going on here. I think Dave Henderson has got great experience going into that scouting role. Obviously had experience with Pat Fenlon going to Hibernian. He knows the league, he knows good players, he knows how to spot a good player. And young David O'Connor, he's going to have to grow a thick skin quite quick, but no
That's
better.
the one, isn't it? You see,
very, very
that just jumps out you straight away. 26-year-old, and he has played, of course, with that. But that experience. Yes, you maybe think it's going to stand him in good stead, but realistically, this is a different world.
Listen, there've been plenty of old men running football clubs into the ground. So.
Absolute animals out there, but. Maybe he can defeat Braun with brains. Seems to be a clever lad. But best of luck to him. But there's no shortage of people in the background that be willing to get involved and help out and try and get the club back to where they should be.
Where is the community that Shells can tap into? So you look at Bowes and they're doing a very good job at Phibsborough and in Cabra and around there and getting people involved and getting to the heart of that community. Is it out around Drumcondra, into Raheny, Clontarf out there, or have they been left behind by the GAA teams out there, which seem to be incredibly well organised? Yeah,
I mean, you're always going to be competing with the GAA, so you can't really do much about that, to be quite honest. But when I was there, that's where it was. It was Fairview, Drumcondra, Glasnevin, Clontarf. I still believe there's a fan base there, and then of course there's a legacy base in Ringsend, where the club was originally from. They're not old enough that they haven't forgotten all about it. So there's definitely a fan base to tap into, and that's something that you brought up the Bowes model of trying to work on that whole match day experience, which has been hugely successful for them, and that's a line of thought that they probably need to follow as well.
Yes, Stewie Byrne speaking to us here on Off the Ball this week, and the very best of luck to Shelbourne and their appointment as well of David O'Connor as CEO and Dave Henderson as their head of recruitment. Now, Darren, we were a little bit confused in the office this week when I told you we were going to speak to David O'Connor on the League of Ireland podcast, and you said, it's great to have the new Shell CEO, and I said, no, it's David O'Connor, the Shell's coach, who is going to be running 10 marathons in 10 days to highlight mental health issues. So it's that David O'Connor.
And I thought a 26-year-old CEO was impressive. 10 marathons in 10 days is an unbelievable achievement, and all for a great cause, so fair play. That's actually, when we were mentioning all the good things that are happening at Talca Park at the moment, that probably should have been high up there. That's a bit of a miss from us, so apologies.
Well, it's high up there now because we're about to hear from him now on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast. Dave O'Connor, tell us why you're running 10 marathons in 10 days to highlight mental health issues. The challenge is part of my own progress and the boldest statement I can make in terms of positive mental health. I've been affected by extreme low mood and depression throughout my life, and had two severe low points in my 20s where I gave up and saw no future. This was all a delayed reaction as a result of being bullied in school and being mugged at 14 when I had a syringe held up to me. I destroyed myself mentally right up to the point I wanted to go, but made a commitment to better myself. David, take the story on from there, please.
Look, I suppose you've kind of summed it up there, just what you've summarised. I think just for me, I'm 34 now, but just kind of right throughout my 20s, particularly sort of mid-20s, sort of onwards, there was just a kind of a build-up of tension within me, build-up of anxiety, and probably just kind of looking back over what I'd been through, started getting a bit angry for sort of letting myself go through that. And just felt a little bit lost. There was kind of there were a lot of contributing factors to it as well. I mean, at that point, I sort of a bit lost career-wise as well. You're maybe making comparisons to your friends who are sort of doing better. You sort of perceived are doing better than maybe you were. So it was just a lot of things that was kind of building up. And as I said, unfortunately, look, it just led me down a kind of a bad path. But look, the positive, obviously, I got a hold of it. I got a hold of myself, and I think when we talk about mental health, we talk about awareness. It's all about kind of talking to people, but the biggest thing I need to do was kind of talk to myself first, and that's kind of what I did. So I suppose I made a commitment to myself before anything else to just match the effort that I had put into sort of destroying myself to go in the other direction and building myself up, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years.
The very best of luck to Shelbourne and their first team coach David O'Connor, running 10 marathons in 10 days, and he's going to run the marathons around a track to highlight what mental health issues can be like. He's not going to run in a picturesque park or through the roads of Dublin. He's going to run 10 marathons in 10 days around a track. So the very best of luck to Dave O'Connor with that. Now, our final port of call on this week's Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast here is with the Cobh manager Stephen Henderson. Cobh, of course, in the first division, doing quite well. But,
my favourite manager.
Yes.
Do you know why he's my favourite manager?
Because he says what he feels.
He says what he feels.
He dresses well on the
and
sideline.
he also gave Jamie the most glorious nickname you could possibly imagine last season on the League of Ireland podcast, where he said he's always known Jamie Moore as JMO Short Arse Moore, which I just think is the best nickname a League of Ireland manager could possibly give to the host of Ireland's favourite League of Ireland podcast.
The lads in the production booth are laughing. No, he didn't. Well, he did call me Jamie Short Arse Moore, but he also called me JMO the Cat Moore, because back in the day I played for Belvedere.
Short arse.
Well, I played for Belvedere. Stephen Henderson was my goalkeeping coach, and he used to call me a cat because I'd fly through the air and make all these mad saves. And he said if I wasn't a League of Ireland pundit, I could have actually been a League of Ireland star.
So where did the Short Arse nickname come from? Why did he call you Short Arse?
I'm only a small fella.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, on Twitter this week, Henderson tweeted after Soccer Republic on Monday to say about the lads, about particularly Declan O'Brien. He said, calling out players and managers is great crack if it's in a pub. It's not so great if it's the best we have, a constructive analysis on our prime football show. He wants more from our pundits, Darren, and he's been explaining that to me this week on our Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast. Now, Hendo, you're looking for more from our pundits, particularly Declan O'Brien after Monday night?
Well, no, I want more from him.
Okay.
I think it was disappointing that he'd come out and say something like that about, general players in League of Ireland. They're probably the most honest bunch you'll meet. Just to come out and question his character is what I felt. I thought it was really disappointing. I think when you go on shows like that, all this stuff he talks about is what we talk about in the pub. It's a bit of crack. You can criticise who you want. I think when you go on a top show like Soccer Republic, which it is, the public are expecting you to give constructive analysis. Why is Greg? Greg was out injured. It's the 99th minute, a hot air shot. You know what I mean? A young fella out of position, 99th minute. Learning the game. Why did that happen? This is stuff the public want to know. Do you know what I mean? We can all see what's happening when it's there. But if you're going to go on a show like that and you're going to receive money for doing that, be constructive in your analysis and don't be coming out with stuff that you'd hear in the boozer. It's simple as that. I was really disappointed with the lad. Yeah, on the other side, young Curry is excellent. So the show in general has great pundits in there, but I was really disappointed with that.
So, Darren, he wants more from the pundits. What do you think, finally, about pundits having to go at people on the TV? You mentioned earlier on you feel that some pundits may say certain things to make sure they're on the next episode or their column in the newspaper read by more people. Do the players and managers have to be able to take this criticism, or is Stephen Henderson, should I say, right, and should our pundits, including us, because we're pundits too, be doing more to be constructive and, talk about the league in a better light?
I don't think you need to talk about the league in a better light. I don't think you need to be cheerleaders. I think you need to be fair. And if you're fair and balanced, and if you're giving an honest opinion that's rooted in fact, if you say someone had a bad game, that is a fact. If you say someone is a disgrace and should hand back their wages, that is just, for me, over the top criticism, and it's it's veering into the realms of being personal, and I think it's needless. I do feel that we are owed a higher level of punditry in this country and across the board, because I think a lot of them will make up their minds based on the result and not on the performance. And I do think that's a little bit unfair sometimes to teams that have played well. Like if you look at games where a team loses narrowly, people will jump on it and probably have some preconceived notions that they will share that aren't rooted in a whole lot of fact. And I mean, there's a lot of knee-jerk punditry. I think we mentioned Alan Cawley earlier in the podcast, where he mentioned he picked out an area of Rovers he felt needed improvement. And I know we've focused a bit on Rovers, but not in a negative way. And he said the goalkeeping situation, the manager should probably address it. It'll be very, very important. And if they are to have success this season, it might be somewhere he looks to strengthen. I feel that is constructive and that is fair criticism. That was met with, I don't respect the man, so I don't take his opinion seriously. That's not constructive. That's not fair. And for me, I think that is just a little bit petty and a little bit bitter. So I do think that the level of analysis needs to improve. In saying that, I understand why a guy who gets paid to be on the television will want to be on the television next week, so we'll say something outlandishly daft to get on the television the next week.
Yes, indeed. Very finally, the fixtures and results in the Premier Division and First Division this coming weekend. Of course, we had midweek games in the Premier League on Monday and Tuesday. St Pat's beat Waterford 1-0. Ryan Brennan got that goal at Richmond Park. Derry City 3, Bohemians 1. The result up in the Brandywell. Darren, we haven't mentioned Derry yet. They've now won 7 matches in a row in all competitions, including 6 in the league. They're back to the Brandywell with a bang, and I know the manager Kenny Shields this week, after winning their 5th home match, did speak about a tribute to Ryan McBride. who he actually said was up the road from the Brandywell in the cemetery cheering on his team, which was very nice. Bray 1, Shamrock Rovers 0, we discussed already. Limerick 0, Dundalk 3 was the final score down at the Markets Field. But Cork City beat Sligo Rovers by 1-0. And in the extended version of the podcast, we're going to hear from Cork's Barry McNamee and the Sligo Rovers manager Gerard Little as well. That was the results on Monday and Tuesday. The busy period continues with 5 games this coming weekend. It's Waterford against Bray on Friday. That game is at the RSC at 7:45. Dundalk v Derry in the Oriel Park, should I say, 7:45 as well. 8 o'clock, it's Bows against Cork City, a game we'll be at here on Off the Ball in Dublin. 8 o'clock, that game is live on telly. Shamrock Rovers Limerick also at 8, while Sligo against St Pat's takes place on Saturday. And also in the first division, UCD beat Finn Harps by 3-2 on Friday night. A big win for UCD towards the top of the table. Georgie Kelly banging in a hat-trick for the students there. They finished Galway 4, Wexford 1, despite Wexford taking the lead in that match. Drogheda and Longford drew 1 each. Cabinteely beat Shelbourne 2-0. And Athlone Town's woes continued a 4-1 defeat at home to Stephen Henderson's Cobh Ramblers. The games this weekend is Wexford against Athlone, the bottom 2 at 8 o'clock down there in Wexford. Finn Harps against Cabinteely also at 8. Shells host Galway at 7:45. It's Cobh against Drogheda at the same time, while on Saturday a game I'll also be at. It's Longford against UCD. That game taking place down in City Calling Stadium at 7:30. Darren, very finally, you wanted to mention briefly your interview with the St Pat's president Tom O'Mahony about their plans for the Richmond Arena, a 12,000-seater stadium on top of a shopping centre in Inchicore. That full interview is on offtheball.com and our Facebook and Twitter pages now. But you had an interesting chat with Tom in Richmond during the week.
Yeah, that's right, Jamie. Given the fact that the story actually broke while we had the podcast recording last week, we didn't get a proper chance to cover it. We did go out to Inchicore. We spoke to Tom O'Mahony. He's the president, and he is the spokesperson for this project as well. We know Gareth Kelleher, the owner of St Pat's, is the one funding it. We did put in a request to Gareth. He doesn't do too much media work. It's not his bag, but he's left that to Tom O'Mahony. Very, very good communicator, and gave a really good insight into exactly what the next step in the process is and how this will come about. There was a little bit of misinformation around. I think RT managed to dig up the only councillor that was opposed to the plan and he didn't really understand it. He said, how will they get council land? How can they build on land they don't own? Well, the council
they'll buy it or they'll get it.
Well, the council are looking for proposals. So in effect, the council will give them the land and St Pat's will develop the land. It was really interesting and probably addressed some of the myths and maybe false information out there and some of the pessimism surrounding that, but at the same time he was very, very forthright and honest in dealing with that, and I think it's really, really interesting for League of Ireland fans to see and get an insight into maybe some more depth into what's happened. The press release, a lot of it was scratching the surface. We didn't really get too much under the surface, but it's a good 17-18 minutes chat with Tom, and he really goes into great depth of not only what their plan is but how it will affect the area in a positive way. I would encourage any Pats fans that haven't seen it, or indeed any League of Ireland fans, to check out offtheball.com.
Yes, and that is the place as well where you will find our episode 10 in full of our League of Ireland podcast with myself and Darren. Extended interviews of what we brought you with Aaron Greene, as well as the new Limerick midfielder Connor Clifford on his return from his ban from betting. We're also going to speak to Cork's Barry McNamee, the Sligo manager Gerard Little, as well as the Cobh Manager Stephen Henderson, Kieran Marty Waters of Cabinteely, and Shelbourne coach David O'Connor, who we absolutely wish him luck again, who's running 10 marathons in 10 days to highlight mental health issues. That's it for episode 10, folks. We'll chat to you next Wednesday. See you. Bye-bye.